What is up, everybody? Happy Friday and welcome to the Early Edge. We have a great show in store for you today, but I got to stop with the chat here. John Parker giving an update on his family affairs, on his wife. We are wishing your wife, John Parker, the very, very best. And I know that because the chat has already been in there giving her and you and your family well wishes. So love to hear that. We really appreciate the update. And let me update you. Awkward transition, but let me update you on how we did yesterday. The recap screen, ladies and gentlemen, a lot of green here. 7-3 overall in our Thursday edition. And let's be very clear, it really should have been 8-2. I hit 2 out of 3, but oh my goodness, Nevada losing after being up 17 points with 7 minutes left. One of the bigger collapses I've seen across sports. Very upset about that one, but I'm never upset about seeing this many green check marks. Absolutely love to see it. And we're going to try to replicate this again today. And because it's Friday, you know how we do things, right? We got to do it big pick energy style. So let me introduce the stars of the show on Friday's Big Pick Energy. Ladies and gentlemen. Oh, here we go. Here we go. We got some shadow boxing. I think Buckets is doing a bow and arrow. Yes, I got that right. And Mike, I don't know where the newspaper is. I thought I was going to see the Business Journal or something. What's going on?
Yeah, Sia moved to new house finally. Didn't bring any newspapers with me. Don't have anything delivered here, so no newspapers on this edition.
New house, but same background. See, I love that dedication. Quick story, by the way, Buckets. I want to intro you and Danny Brasco. But when I moved to DC, which was only like 4 or 5 months ago, true story, I had my wife come up first just so she could set up the exact same background, and that I could come in and just sit in the same chair. I drove up, she flew up. Long story short, as soon as I got into where I am right now, I had the same exact background, just like Mike. That is the dedication we need on this Early Edge show. Speaking of dedication, Buckets, we're about to go into our Dog of the Day segment. But before I even do that, Freya, she's really the true Dog of the Day. How is she doing?
She is doing well. I would show my camera to show her, but my room is embarrassingly messy right now. I don't have a wife to help me set things up. It is a disaster, but she's doing good. Big vet appointment at 11 this morning after Big Pick Energy here. So just hoping that goes well.
Love to hear it. And Danny Brasco, listen, I love your energy. And let's be real here. We have B Mills in the chat. We have other people in the chat saying, hey, I love this crew, but where's Chip? Where's my Chip Me Up? And I don't expect you, Danny Brasco, to replicate the Chip Me Up. I don't think anybody can do it. And even if you did, you'd probably get sued. He has patented that. With all that said, you've got some college basketball info for us today. You've got some UFC. You got to be excited. Maybe we can get maybe not a Chip Me Up, but a Brasco B something, alliteration. I haven't thought of it yet. Go ahead.
Hey, man, of course I couldn't replicate the Chip Me Up. But I'm so excited that Brasco might accidentally knock you out. I'm throwing elbows in my living room. I'm boxing out. We got March Madness. We got UFC Fight Night. We got Mike McClure, John Bucket, Sia Nejad. I mean, I'm fired up on a Friday, Sia. Let's go.
Let's go. Hey, that was pretty close. Put that double espresso down. You just got it on the Early Edge. All right, let's get into, before we get to official picks, because Buckets, I know you have a soccer pick. I'm going to lead with that. But before we get to the official picks, let's talk about some dogs in March Madness. Just like yesterday, we had some Dog of the Day segment. We hit one of them. We had Sanford as one, but we had Duquesne as the other. That was Tom Casale giving that one out. And, of course, Duquesne came through and outright won that game. So how about a couple of dogs in the Friday version of March Madness? And Mikey, I'm going to start with you. Is there it doesn't have to be a big dog. It could be a smaller dog. Is there a dog that you would be willing to put your money on as an outright victor?
Yeah, definitely. See, there's several actually. The one that I think is the biggest one that stands out, though, I like the Colorado Buffaloes here. You can find them around +2 still in the market. I actually make them favored in this game by a pretty significant amount, up to -2.5, close to -3. This is a team that I think you really have to look at what they've done recently, and they've been very, very strong. They ran into an Oregon team that really is also trending in the right direction, playing extremely good basketball here. But I like Colorado. They've got scorers that can get to the bucket or get to the rim at will. Some legitimate NBA talent on this team overall. So when I look at this matchup with Florida, I think Florida is they're dealing with injuries, number one. But the contrasting style of play is not a problem for Colorado. I don't think that the massive pace of play that Florida wants to play with really translates in this format here. So I like Colorado. I make them a favorite in this game. Good free throw shooting team, and I think that will ultimately be the difference.
Yeah, there's no question Colorado has a ton of talent. A team certainly getting healthy at the right time. All right, Danny Brasco, any dogs in the department there? Maybe you agree with Colorado. Maybe you got another one on the board here.
Yeah, music to my ears from Mike. I like Colorado in a big way, too. Florida's missing one of their big men, too, and we know Colorado struggled rebounding last game. I feel like they'll play with a spine and some strength today and attack the glass. So I like the Buffaloes, too. But I'm looking at a wider underdog. That 13-4 matchup, Sia, is a spicy one, and it's where the 4 seed has let you down, especially playing as big favorites. So I'm going to take a look at Charleston on the money line, plus 365. I took plus 9.5 as well, but it's giving me similar vibes to Duquesne and BYU yesterday. 4 seeds that have played as larger than 7-point favorites have done very poorly, 6-14 and 1 against the spread. More than 8.5 point favorites, and we get that plus 9.5 here. So that's checking a green box for me there. 30% cover rate since 2004. So I'm going to go with Charleston here and see if they can keep up in a shootout that I expect today.
Yeah, interesting pick there with Charleston. All right, I'm going to give out a pick here. Again, these aren't official plays. These are just kind of underdogs that we think have a shot at an outright victory. I mean, listen, if you know me at all, you know I'm probably going with James Madison University, a 5.5 point dog. Listen, I'll be perfectly clear about this one. This could get away from JMU the way Wisconsin is playing. Like, this is a good Wisconsin team, and I couldn't say that about Wisconsin about 6 weeks ago. With that said, though, if JMU starts hitting their shots from the outside, we know Wisconsin's going to score, but if JMU starts hitting their shots from the outside and building that momentum, this is now a winning culture. 31-3, yes, a lot of those wins were against, quad 3, quad 4 teams, but they have sized up some better opponents, including in the Big Ten with Michigan State earlier in the year. If JMU can knock down their shots and get that momentum, I think they can get rolling and perhaps win this thing outright at around plus 200, plus 195 here at BetMGM. It's going to be it's a trendy dog here. It's a fun pick. Again, it's not an official play for me, but if I was going to pick a dog outright, JMU would certainly be on my card. By the way, I see picks in the chat. I see Mark Buckhold saying Dukes. Love the Dukes love there. And David Talk, he has an NBA prop, which I think is very interesting. SGA under 2.5 rebounds first quarter. That is very, very specific and obscure, and I absolutely love it. And it's a really nice segue, specific and obscure, to a buckets bet in a soccer league that I may or may not have ever heard of. I'm not even sure. We got to let Buckets tell us. But before he does that, let's hear a message from our partners.
Last dance, I shall follow your lead. We're on a search for one of the greatest powers ever known. Let's fly.
We are back on the Early Edge, presented by BetMGM. It's me, it's Mikey, it's Danny, and of course, it's Buckets and his collection of goods behind him, courtesy of his P.O. Box and all of you in the chat. If you haven't seen that tweet, I don't know, Buckets, is that pinned to your Twitter profile? Or at this point, do you want it to be kind of like in obscurity because you've gotten enough stuff?
No, it is pinned. I'll make sure to pull it up for people that still want to participate.
If you don't know what we're talking about, he's going to pin it to his profile. And all the stuff behind him is from you, from all of you in the chat. And I'm sure there's more stuff coming. So always appreciate the participation from the Early Edge chat. Hopefully you've already hit the like button. Buckets. There's a lot of March Madness. There's a lot of UFC. We even have NBA props in the chat. And of course, we have NBA props and all these picks on sportsline.com. But we need a soccer pick right now.
Yeah, we do need a soccer pick. And today was probably the hardest time I've ever had finding a soccer pick because the slate is just so slim and the majority of matches being played are international friendlies. And we do not bet on international friendlies where coaches and teams will literally say, we don't care if we win this match. Don't do that. Instead, I'm going to take you guys to something called, the Finnish Sleeman Cup in a matchup between VG62 hosting PIF. VG62, a team that I know that we all love, plays in the Finnish Kulmanen division, which is the 5th tier of Finnish soccer. They'll be hosting a PIF side who plays in the Kakkonen division, which is the 4th division of Finnish soccer. These are two teams that, okay, let's be honest, we've never heard of before, but that doesn't matter because they play a style of football that we can all really appreciate. These are two teams that just don't have defense at all, and two teams that have a very, very high priority on scoring. Both clubs have only played one match since October, so they're just now starting again. But if you look at VG's opening match, they won that match 7-1, and PIF won their match 10-0. And if you look at the head-to-head, and if you look at all of the recent form, everything points to goals here. PIF's recent matches, 3-1, 6-1, 4-0, 3-2, 2-3, VG 62, doing the exact same thing. I'll be honest and say I can't name a single player, but what I can do is bet over 3.5 goals, because that is at plus 100. And when you're looking at recent form, when you're looking at lack of defense, when you're looking at everything possible here, there's no reason this doesn't go over 3.5 goals, Sia.
Over 3.5 at even money. If I know anything about VG62 and PIF, it's that actually I don't know anything about those two teams. I love the pick nonetheless. Let's root for goals in obscurity. Absolutely love it. All right. Speaking of obscurity, let's get to my golf pick. We've got a round 2 matchup. This is a very interesting round 2 at the Valspar Championship. Then we're going to give some SportsLine picks and get some feedback from Danny Brasco and Mike McClure on the college basketball SportsLine picks. But all right, I'm going with Christian Bezuidenhout over Eric Cole. This is minus 110. This is a round 2 matchup this afternoon. A couple reasons why this is interesting. First of all, we rode the coattails of CBez yesterday in a 3-ball, which of course hit. We were 2 for 2 on our golf picks yesterday. The reason this is interesting is because there is some pretty terrible weather at the Valspar in Florida. And I'm not even sure this round is going to finish, but it doesn't really matter when it comes to our matchup. These guys are going to be out at the same time. So really, if they're playing in elements, it really just comes down to which of these two guys is going to play better in elements. And I do believe it's the South African CBez, but it's not just because he's, kind of been in different climates and played maybe with more wind throughout his career on the Euro Tour and away from the United States of America. But it's also because he's striking the ball a lot better than Eric Cole. I love Eric Cole. He's a guy that really has been dialed in, maybe not so much the last month or so, but typically, last year, for example, really dialed in on approach, really dialed in with the ball striking, an absolute birdie maker. But this isn't that type of course. This isn't a birdie maker's course. It's a bogey avoid course. And that's where I think CBez comes in. And when I look at the ball striking between the two, and this is part of the reason I was on CBez yesterday, the ball striking has been there for him and the short game has been there for him. Eric Cole has been very, very erratic. And we saw that yesterday. He had a +2 performance where CBez was much better. I see a similar result, whether it's treacherous weather or not. I see a similar result with CBez over Eric Cole. So I really like the minus 110 number here. I would have made this probably minus 125 the way Eric Cole is playing. So that's my pick. You have it until this afternoon to play it. I don't know that they finished their round today. It's very possible this gets suspended. The round gets suspended and they finish this round tomorrow, which is fine. It doesn't really make a difference for our bet. It just means we may not see it on the recap screen on Saturday. So just something to consider there, but it doesn't affect the bet whatsoever. Now, let's transition from golf back to college basketball because I know Mike McClure has a pick. But before we even get to those picks, I want to talk about a couple of SportsLine picks. Now, by the way, you know how to join SportsLine, sportsline.com/join. Type in winners as the promo code. You'll get 60% off the annual plan. Let's start. Danny, I want to go with you on this first SportsLine pick. New Mexico minus 2.5, which is minus 110, against Clemson. Okay, this is a 3:10 Eastern Standard Time game. I think a lot of people like Clemson in this game, but I know at least one very sharp person who may or may not be on this show that is on the other side that likes Clemson. The way I see it, and I'm curious to hear your kind of take on this, and then maybe Mike's response. And I don't need a long take here. Let me just give you my opinion on New Mexico. They're playing really well. I know the Mountain West has kind of floundered, but Nevada, Drake probably should have won yesterday. Gave up big leads down the stretch. Clemson is the fade here for me because they were so bad down the stretch. They lost to Notre Dame. They lost to Boston College. And I just don't see those two ACC teams as any good at all. And I just think New Mexico, specifically with their guard play, probably prevails here. But then again, the line is kind of like some money coming in on Clemson. So any thoughts before we go to Mike on this Clemson-New Mexico game, our pick being New Mexico minus 2.5?
Yeah, I'm with you. See, I like New Mexico as well, but they are getting quite popular themselves. Their hot play down the stretch, winning that conference tournament, has garnered attention. And like you said, they're electric guards. Right? I'm seeing money come in on New Mexico as well. It's not going to scare me off, though. They're up to minus 2.5 favorites. I like them at -2. I haven't played them in the first half. A lot of the time you see this, look, it's another trend, but I'm applying it to the matchup. This 6 versus 11 seed matchup where you see the 6 seed as a dog. Oftentimes people will want to go bet that higher seed team, but Clemson is one of those higher seeds that I think is liable to get beat. They can go into deep scoring droughts. And in that spot, the 6 seed playing as the dog is just 4-11 straight up and against the spread since 2001. So it's feeling a little trappy, maybe a more popular ACC team. I think New Mexico is the hot team, back the hot team at the right time. I'm going with the Lobos here.
Okay, I like the Lobos too, but Mike McClure, I know you kind of like Clemson here. So what's your explanation for being on the other side?
Yeah, I like Clemson. Look, I think that Clemson still played some pretty tough matchups with just the 2 schools in the conference being Duke and Carolina. The contrasting style here, though, is what I really like from Clemson. So New Mexico is a team that wants to play with a ton of pace, and that works really well during the regular season. And some of these neutral sites tournament games like this, I think it's a Clemson team that can really throw the contrast in style here, muck the game up, play with very slow tempo overall, limit the number of possessions. But the thing that stands out the most about Clemson and why I like them in these formats is they're an excellent free throw shooting team. One of the best, I think 5th in all of the country, which would put them number 1 in the NCAA tournament in terms of knocking down free throws, around an 80% clip as a team, which is very, very significant here. I just think it's a competitive game. I think that New Mexico, because of the style that they play, they're still going to be heavily reliant on shooting from the perimeter in this particular matchup. So I'll bet against some of that, the shooting variance there, but I think the game should be around a pick 'em. I still make Clemson a -2 favorite. I think this Clemson team is still one of the more dangerous teams, despite being very inconsistent overall. I think that coming in off of a loss will have them as focused and as sharp as they can be. So I do like Clemson.
Yeah, fair enough. The coming off a loss tidbit, decent there. Danny Brasco, what you got?
To Mike's point about the clash of styles, I also like the under 152 in this game. I think they could slow it down, force New Mexico to maybe play at their pace for a little bit. And if there is a drought, it should go under this high total.
All right, let's go to the other sports line pick. So we have New Mexico -2.5, but caveat there, Mike McClure on Clemson plus the points here. Utah State plus 4.5 is the other sports line pick against TCU. This one's at 9:55 Eastern Standard Time tonight. This is really a clash of styles here. And I do think Utah State probably has I like TCU a lot. I bet on them this year a decent amount. I think it's a good quality team. I love Jamie Dixon. I love their head coach. I think they probably win this game, but I also think Danny plus 4.5 might be a few too many points. What are your thoughts on this sports line pick?
It's a tight one. This is a pass for me here. You don't have to attack every game. Like they say, right? The one advantage that we have, true advantage that we have over Las Vegas, is that we don't have to bet every game, and they do. So if I was going to take something, maybe lean over the 8-9 matchup, usually super tight one. If we get a late game fouling situation, looking to extend, I can see this one being, one team having to scratch and claw and stay in it. So lean over, but just a lean.
Yeah, Mike McClure, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I would echo that with Danny there. I think that that's probably the way I would be at this point, considering where the spread is. If we were getting a 2.5, I'd be more interested. But yeah, it would be an over lean at this point.
All right, an over lean on that game. Again, these are SportsLine official plays. Go to sportsline.com /join to see all of not just the March Madness plays, but all plays. And by the way, if you want to make these plays, and Danny, before we get to your picks, I got to talk about the new BetMGM promo. At BetMGM, for the first round of matchups, eligible players will receive 3 64% boosts. A 64% boost token for minimum odds of -300, a 64% live odds boost token for minimum odds of -300, and a 64% parlay boost token for minimum of 4 legs plus 400 odds. Absolutely love that. 3 different ways to get your 64% bonus. Log into the BetMGM app for offer details. All right, Danny Brasco, we're going to kick it right back to you. And Dennis, your Western Kentucky question, I'm going to address that before we close this show. But let's talk about, listen, we talked about it. You talked about it at the front end of the show. We've got UFC this weekend too. Talk to us about some picks there.
That's right. Let me move right through these Fight Night picks. We got UFC Fight Night tomorrow. Bellator as well. Shout out my guy Gipper's picks in the chat. He said he's got Bellator going on, so head over there. Chat's going off this morning in all facets of the sports world. But I like 3 picks here that I'll move right through for UFC Fight Night. Main event. Thug Rose Namajunas is back, and I really like her money line, parlaying her with Edmund Shabazian. I think Rose gets back in the win column here. She's on a 2-fight losing streak, but she's facing Amanda Hebos here, who's a good fighter, exciting fighter who likes to mix up her attack. but her volume is a detriment more than a strength. She leaves herself open to getting hit. Her feet get out of place, and her defense becomes a little shoddy and sloppy. I think Rose can crack her with a counterpunch. I might play Rose inside the distance. I think she gets a big win. Parlay her with Edmund Shabazian, an exciting young kickboxer who's been facing tough level of competition, ranked middleweights. This weekend, he gets someone that is below his level. He might finish him inside the distance as well. Those are two confident picks you can put together on the money line for a plus 119 parlay price tag. Next up, Trey Ogden, minus 144. In his last fight, he was absolutely robbed by the referee in a terrible no contest decision. He had his opponent all but submitted, and he was winning in a masterclass of a performance. I think he might do the same again. He's a very intelligent fighter. He's a coach at Marathon MMA. He trains his own fighters, and he fights with a high IQ, whether he's sticking the jab out there, using his footwork, or using his grappling savvy. He's facing a really tough guy in Kurt Hollabaugh, but toughness is probably his best quality, and I think Trey will outpoint him in this fight. And finally, let's close with Youssef Zalal, underdog, plus 105. Guys, initially, I was on Billy Quarantillo, his opponent, but I looked further into the fight. I just mentioned toughness can't be your best quality. It's been that way for Billy Q for his whole career, and he's now 35, coming off so many damaging, bruising fights. You take a look at Youssef Zalal's record, it's not pretty, but this is now his second stint in the UFC. He's making his return, and I watched film on him. He looks like he cleaned some things up. He looks very technically sharp. A bruiser, brawler moving forward versus a technical tactician. I think Zalal might touch him up and get this win done. But Billy will be a popular pick. But watch out, the line looks pretty trappy. I like Youssef Zalal. So there's 3 UFC picks for this Saturday, Sia.
All right. Youssef Zalal finishing off the 3-pick set from Danny Brasco. A couple of questions in the chat before we get to Mike McClure's official college basketball pick, which I love as well, by the way. Some golf questions. So I guess at some books you don't have the Seabez matchup against Cole. Some of you have it, Seabez versus Keith Mitchell. Keith Mitchell had a great day yesterday, but I still like Christian Bezennout, aka Seabez, over Mitchell. I think Mitchell could flounder, especially if the weather conditions kind of get dicey, because the short game isn't exactly Keith Mitchell's specialty. So I do like that one. It's certainly a lean. Somebody else had Seabez. It wasn't against Keith Mitchell. It was against Sung J M at plus money. That one I'm not as confident about. It would be a lean, but I'd probably stay away from that one altogether. All right. We got to get to, go ahead, Danny Brasco.
Well, first of all, there's a couple people, everyone, especially in MMA, everyone's an expert, I always like to say. So if anyone wants to get at me in the chat, I'll take a showdown or whatever. But I got to give my guy Buckets credit, because he got me on another showdown last week. The guy knows his MMA, and the chat is asking for Buckets UFC picks. So Buckets, what do you think?
Danny, I will say, you know that I am always down for an MMA showdown, but the reason I haven't said anything is because I agree with all of your UFC picks. So I'm on the same side for all 3 of these. I'm not touching a showdown here. I think these are very sharp looks, and I'm going to be taking all 3 of these.
Chat, if you want the smoke between me and Buckets, come get us.
I love that. All right. We got to get to a break real quick, and we got to finally get to Mike McClure's official play. So let's hear one quick message from our partners.
The best couch potatoes come from Pluto TV country.
And these taters, they like all sorts of different things.
Survivor Channel, Ink Master Channel.
If it's got a spaceship in it, I'm probably watching it.
3 channels dedicated to CSI.
Whatever mood you're in, it's going to be easy watching.
All right. We are back on the Early Edge, presented by BetMGM. Mike McClure, we've got an official play from you in college basketball. Of course, more plays from everybody on sportsline.com, but let's hear your college basketball play for Friday.
I am on St. Mary's here today, Sia. I did play this on Sunday, really as soon as it came out. We haven't seen a ton of movement. We have seen little, though. I played it at 4.5, mostly 5s and 5.5 left in the market at this point. I still like it, though. I made the number 7.5 here, much like the Gonzaga game last night that I made 9. I think that these teams are undervalued a little bit here. St. Mary's is a team that is phenomenal on the defensive end of the floor, a legitimate top 10 team in the country defensively. They get battle tested with different contrasting styles of play because of the matchups they play multiple times a year with Gonzaga. That's what Grand Canyon is going to try to do. Grand Canyon is a significantly worse version of Gonzaga. When I look at this St. Mary's team, though, it's all about the smothering defense. We've seen them do it time and time again. I think they're able to do it in this particular matchup. I also give them a sizable rebounding edge, really on both ends of the floor. So while at times there have been some offensive concerns there, I really think it's more of just a product of the style that they play in terms of the pace. I like St. Mary's here again, just like Gonzaga. I think that this number is very, very short. Like it up to 7.5. I think Grand Canyon is a really strong basketball team. I think this is a terrible matchup for them individually. I would have liked them against several other teams in the tournament, but not against St. Mary's here.
Yeah, I totally agree. I don't think St. Mary's and or Gonzaga are getting the recognition they deserve. And when we were doing our conference tournament champions, I think I addressed this. I think if you were doing your brackets and you made Gonzaga or St. Mary's kind of a sleeper to kind of run through a bracket, I don't hate that play because I think both of these teams are very undervalued. Grand Canyon, certainly like a trendier dog to the extent dogs have been trendy, but St. Mary's, the only way to me, Mike, the only way this gets away from St. Mary's is if somehow Grand Canyon grabs a big lead early, and then that style of play that St. Mary's plays might not be conducive to comeback ball. But the way St. Mary's plays, this is fundamental basketball. This is a very solid, not hyper talented, but a very solid team. So I do like St. Mary's to pull away in this one. And by the way, let me ask you one quick question, because there were questions about Western Kentucky, and then we'll get out of here. We'll do the recap screen. There were questions about Western Kentucky plus 14.5 against Marquette. Now, Tyler Kolek likely playing in this game. I assume he's going to play a decent amount of minutes. I think I would stay away from this one because I think Shaka Smart probably wants Kolek out there and just see how the team is functioning over largely 40 minutes because they got to get ready for the next games too. They've got a nice path now that Kentucky has gone to that they can maybe run through this thing. I've liked Marquette this entire season, but I got to admit, the chat likes Western Kentucky plus 14.5, and that's a lot of points. So, Mike, let me ask you, any edge on this game whatsoever?
Yeah, so I made Marquette an 18-point favorite here. Another one of those things where Western Kentucky, a lot like Grand Canyon, they are a team that could have success in some matchups. This is not one of them for me. And the reason for it is Western Kentucky plays with a ton of pace. That's exactly what this Marquette team wants to do. Marquette, especially when they've got a size advantage and athleticism advantage, they want to run. They're literally playing into the strength of the opponent. To have a shot against Marquette, they would want to really play half-court basketball and limit possessions. That is not what Western Kentucky does. They actually lead the country out of 362 teams. They rank number 1 in pace of play. The problem is you're just playing into the strength of Marquette here. So I think this is a high variance environment overall, but considering the tempo and giving Marquette additional possessions, not something I would be interested in.
Legitimately unplanned question. It came from the chat, and that's the answer you got from Mike McClure. That's why you watch the early edge, folks. Danny Brasco, any response to Western Kentucky plus 14.5, which the chat seems to like?
Yeah, I agree with Mike. I would sooner lay the points with Marquette. 2 seeds that are less than 17-point favorites. 21-8-2 run right now against the spread. I cashed on Iowa State minus 15.5, which just fell under that mark, and they cashed. They won by 17. So I'm liking that trend. More than 17-point favorites, they're not doing so well. 13-23-1 against the spread. So when that big 2 seed is a short enough favorite in that range, it's been profitable. I think I might ride it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we got to take a look at the recap screen and get everybody out of here. I've got a round 2 matchup, which starts in a few hours, as long as there's no delays. Christian Bezenhut, we're going right back to him, minus 110 over Eric Cole. Buckets, we all know this team, VG62 and PIF. This is a rivalry among rivalries, over 3.5 at even money. SportsLine picks, New Mexico minus 2.5. That's an afternoon game, and Utah State plus 4.5. That's an evening game. Mike McClure, St. Mary's minus 4.5. Danny Brasco, pronunciations. Rose Namajunas?
Yeah,
money, Soft J. Rose Namajunas, money line plus Edmund Shabazian, money line plus 119. How'd I do?
You nailed it, Sia. And the chat can all DM me personally if you want a showdown. I got all of you guys.
Trey Ogden minus 144 and Yusuf Zala plus 105. Ladies and gentlemen, we extended the show a little bit because we really wanted to get in some of that March Madness discussion that you all had in the chat. We try to do that each and every day, whether March Madness is going or not. And by the way, we know baseball season is about to come, NBA playoffs, NHL playoffs, and we still have a bunch of college basketball to address as well. So this show is going to be so active. As long as you're active in the chat, we are going to be having that back and forth and trying to answer all of your questions among our official picks. But for the here and now on this Big Pick Energy Friday, we got to get out of here. On behalf of Buckets, on behalf of Mike McClure, on behalf of Danny Brasco and Mikey and Harry helping us out producing this show as Jake the Snake is on assignment with Chip Patterson. I am the counselor. This is the Early Edge, and we rest our case.